Next, what we're going to work on is being able to add the products into our Redux global state and our local storage. So when a user clicks on the add to cart button, whether here on this page or on another page, we should be able to keep track of all those items, so that way it can be available to us later. For example, when the user decides that they're done with the shopping and end up in the shop or in the cart page, it should display all the items that they've added to the cart. But there's also other benefits to this. So for example, you've often seen that when an item is added to the cart, you'll have like on the top navigation portion, the cart, and it'll show like a little, how would you say, like some little indication or number that shows the number of items that the person or the user has in their shopping cart. So that's a great so that's a common thing you'll see in e-commerce. So that's another thing we're going to be making, or another reason why we want to be able to keep track of the items that are added to the cart. All right. So that's what we're going to take care of. Again, two things is adding the items to our Redux and adding it to the local storage, which is built into the browsers. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with that. So the first thing is essentially taking care of our Redux stuff. So I'm gonna create a constant here. So the first step, let's see. So I'm gonna collapse the components, go to Redux, and for our constants, we're gonna create a new file. I'm gonna call this cart constants. All right, and so for this constant, we're going to call it's going to be add to cart. All right, so that's it for that. All right, next step is we're going to work on the reducer. So I'm going to collapse the constants folder, go to reducers, and same thing, create another file for this one. It'll be cart reducers.js. Here we're going to import our constant that we just created earlier, and that's from going back one directory, going to constants and cart constants, and that was add to cart. All right, so to start off, we're going to set up our initial state. Initial state. This will have our cart, which is going to be by default an empty array. And next, what I want to do is I want to set up a condition to first check to see if we have items in our local storage, and if that's the case, then use those items that are stored in our local storage. Otherwise, just set the cart to an empty array. So we'll do if LocalStorage.get item and cart. Now this cart is what I'm going to have as the label or the key item stored into our local storage. All right, it's going to be called cart. So if this exists, then we're going to make initial state dot cart. Now the reason why I'm doing initial state and then dot cart is because over here you see that this initial state is an object. So to get directly to the cart, we have to do initial state dot cart, and then make that equal to JSON.parse. And the reason why we're using JSON parse is because in local storage, in order to store anything in local storage, it has to be in JSON format. So to retrieve it from there, we have to parse it. So we'll do LocalStorage.get item and then the cart. Else we're going to do the initial state dot cart is just going to be an empty array. All right, next, create our reducer. I'm going to call it cart reducer. And this will have the state, which will by default, it'll be our initial state. And we'll also have our action. All right, now we're going to have our switch statement. And we're going to switch on the action type. First case is going to be if it's add to cart. And if that's the case, we're going to return. We're going to return the cart, which we're going to spread the action dot payload. Just like this. And of course, we have to have our default, which we're just going to return the state. And finally, we're going to have to export this. Cart reducer. All right, that's it for that. All right, so as you know, every time we create a reducer, we have to add that to the Redux store. So the way we do that is we have to go here to our store, open that up. And this is where we're combining all of our reducers. So go up here. I'm going to copy and paste and change this up to cart reducer. Just like this. And I'm going to copy this here. Paste. Change this up to cart reducer. And this will be called cart. All right. So now that that's added to our Redux store, let's also start marking these off. We created our reducer. We combined the reducer in our store. So next step is to work on our action function. Create action function and dispatch reducer within it. All right, so let's work on our action function. So here in our action folder, I'm going to create a new file. Call it cart actions.js. All right, so I'm going to go to my cart reducers and copy this here because we're going to have to import our constant and make use of it. All right, now we're going to create our action function, and I'm going to call this add to cart. And this action function is going to get the product as an argument, and we're going to do a sync dispatch. All right, so let's see. So we're gonna have to run through a few steps for this. So let me write down some notes. So the first step is, let's see here. All right, so the first step is we're gonna check if cart already exists in our local storage, then use it. Otherwise, set to empty array. All right, next step is from that is we're also I'm gonna have to check if the item that's being added to the cart, if it already exists. So in other words, we're making sure there's no duplicates. So I'm gonna check if duplicates. Then I'm gonna check if, I'm gonna have a condition which is gonna check if duplicates, if no duplicates, proceed. All right, so if we arrive here inside this block, that means there's no duplicates. So in this case, now we want to prep product data that's coming from as an argument here. And then next, after we prep the data, we want to add product data to the cart. Then we want to add to Redux, or I should say add, more specifically, add cart to Redux. And then finally, we want to add the cart to the local storage. All right, now that we have our notes done, this will be easier for us to go step by step. All right, so next is we're going to have a condition. If cart already exists in local storage, use it, otherwise set to empty array. So if, or actually I'm not going to do it like this. I'm going to do a ternary. I'm going to do a ternary condition. And I'm going to have this cart here. It's going to say if local storage.get item cart, if that exists, then we're going to make use of it. Or yeah, we're going to use it. And again, because if it exists in local storage, we're going to have to parse it. So first we have to parse it using JSON parse, and then we can do the local storage.get item of the cart. Otherwise, if it doesn't exist in our local storage, then just set the cart to an empty array. All right, just like this. All right, next step is we're going to check that the item that was clicked on. So if a user clicked on this button, add to cart, we want to make sure that this item here, for example, the turkey burger, doesn't already exist in our local storage. So we're checking for duplicates. So if, no, actually we're going to create a const here. We're going to call variable duplicates. And we're going to do cart.filter. So we're going to filter this variable, which it'll be either an empty array or it'll be items that already exist in our local storage. So we're going to do cart filter, and each item we're going to call it for now a cart item, and we're going to check that the cart item dot underscore ID, check if it's equal to the product, which is this that's coming in as an argument, or the item that was just clicked on to add to the cart. Check if the product dot underscore ID is a match to the cart ID that exists in the local storage. So if this condition is true, then this will be stored in an array, in this duplicates array. All right, because this filter method is checking all conditions that make this condition true, and if the condition is true, then I'll store that into this array here. All right, so that's it for that. So now we're going to check if duplicates dot length is equal to 0. So this will end up an array, whether there's duplicates, whether there's any duplicates, or if there's no no duplicates, then this duplicates would just be an empty array. So, and that's what we want. We want there to be no duplicates. So that's what I'm checking here. If duplicates length is equal to 0, then we want to proceed. So I'm going to copy these comments here, remove it from here, and paste that here, just like this. All right, so next step is to prep the product data. So I'm going to have a variable here called product to add, and it's going to be an object. And what I'm going to do here first is to spread out whatever exists from our incoming product here that's coming in as an argument. Spread out all that into this object here. And then we're going to add an extra property, and we're going to call it count, which will be 1. And the reason why it's going to be 1 is because, remember, we're entering this condition here, this block of code, only if there's no duplicates. So automatically we know that there's no duplicates, so we want to set the count to 1. Now you might ask yourself, well, what if the user wants to add extra items or more than one item of a product? Well, the user will be able to set the count to add more to this count, but only in our cart page. All right, that's going to be possible once we get to the cart page. But as far as here, when the user clicks on the button add to cart, it's only going to be possible to add only one item there. But once they arrive to the cart page, which shows the summary of what they currently have in the cart page, that's where they're going to be able to add more of that product. All right. All right, next is we want to add the product data to the cart. So now we want to have the cart and do cart push product to add. So remember, this cart, it's coming from here, the start of our action function, which it's either going to be the cart is going to have all the items that are coming from a local storage, or it's just going to be an empty array. So it's going to be one of the two. So now at this point we're now adding the new product that's trying to be added to the cart, and we're pushing that there. And finally, we want to now add the cart to the Redux and to our local storage. All right, so first take care of the Redux. Let's see here. All right, so we're going to actually, let me flip this around. Let me start with the add to the local storage and then the Redux. All right, so first add cart to the local storage. So we're gonna do local storage dot set item, and the first thing is the name of the what's the key value we want to give in our local storage for the cart, or the key item that we want to add to the local storage, and we want to call it cart, and then it's the value. And again, remember that anything stored into our local storage has to be in JSON format. So now that we're setting an item to local storage, we're gonna have to do JSON.stringify, and then we're gonna pass in our cart. All right. Now we want to add the cart to the Redux. So we're going to do dispatch, and this dispatch is coming from here. Remember, it's coming from here. So we're going to do dispatch, pass an object with the type, which is going to be our constant, which is the add to cart, and the payload is going to be the cart. And that's it. All right, so this takes care of our add to cart action function. All right, so create action function and dispatch reducer within it. All right, we took care of that. All right, next is we want to add an on-click handle add to cart to the add to cart button in product and cart component. All right, so now we want to make use of our action function. So the first thing the first place we're going to fire off this action function is going to be in our it's going to be for our card. It's going to be for this here. So you see these are all card. This is making use of our card component here, right? These products are being displayed using our card component. So we're going to pull up our card component. Let me collapse this here. Go to components, get card. And here's our add to cart button. And we want to actually before we do this, let's go ahead and import our action function at the top. I'm gonna do import, and this is gonna be inside of cart actions. And it was called add to cart. And if you look at this cart component, you see that we're already having passed to it the product here. So we don't have to retrieve it from the Redux global state. We can make it's already being added here as an argument. So next step is we're going to have to add our on-click event listener, and it's going to fire off a function called add handle add to cart. Now let's go ahead and create our event handler, and I'll do that right over here. Handle add to cart, and what we're going to do here is dispatch our action function here. So we're going to dispatch the add to cart and pass the product as an argument, just like this. All right, so that's the first thing. So now we're making use of our action function within our cart component. So when the user clicks add to cart here, it's going to add it. It should fire off our action function. But finally, let's go ahead and add it to our product page. So when the user clicks here, the view product for whatever item, say for the veggie burger view product, we have this add to cart button here too. But that's in a different component. That's in the product component. So I'm going to open that up here, and you see we have the button for add to cart. So the same thing, we're going to import our action function here, cart actions, and add to cart. All right, so you see for this component, it's not passing the product as an argument, but instead we have access to it because we're actually retrieving it here, you see, using the use selector. So it's pulling the product from the Redux global state. All right. But before we make use of that product, let's go ahead and add an event listener for the add to cart button. And we're going to give it the same name that we gave it in the other component. It's going to be handle add to cart. Move up here, and I'm going to add our event handler here, handle add to cart. And I'm going to dispatch add to cart, and then now we're going to pass the product as an argument here, just like this. All right, so now if I save that, all right, so now that should take care of everything. So everything should work. Let me check my notes. So we add the on-click event handle add to cart to the buttons for both components. So mark that off. And then add handle add to cart method to both components as well. All right, so that takes care of everything. All right, so now let's actually make sure that all of this works. So let me go back here. So if we go to click, if you open up this our Google, your dev tools here and click on this application tab, you see here for the local storage, here, let me expand this a little more. All right, so you see for the local storage, currently it's empty. There's nothing here. But also, if you click on the Redux tab, and I click the state, all right, you see that the cart is made available to us, but it's currently empty. So now we should have these carts filled for our Redux state and our local storage when we click on the add to cart button. All right, so first let's test this right here. So I clicked on the add to cart here, and you see immediately in our local storage we have the key, which is called cart, and it gives us our cart item here that was clicked on. And if you see, there's one item, and if I expand this, the item that was added was, you see here, turkey burger, which indeed that's what we clicked on here, to add to cart. But also remember that our method took care of, our action function took care of avoiding duplicates. So if the user wanted to click the add to cart button again, it would not show up as a duplicate. So I'm gonna click this again, and you see in the local storage it doesn't add it. All right, next let's check our Redux state. All right, so you see in our Redux state, let me open this a little bit more. We have a cart, and the same thing, it gives us the item, which is the turkey burger here. It's only one item, and the same thing, I'm gonna click on it again to make sure we don't get duplicates, and the same thing, it only shows one. All right, so that's good. But what if we wanted to add another item? Let's click on another item. Let's click on this pepperoni pizza. This is a new item. So look here on our cart, it's only one item so far. But if I click add to cart, now you see there's two items, right? And I click it again, and it doesn't add it anymore because we set up the condition to avoid duplicates. But now let's go ahead back to the application, and you see in our local storage, now we only have two items as well. So we have the turkey burger and the pepperoni pizza. All right, so that's good. Let's do it again. Let's click this add to cart for the pizza. I clicked it, and now you see we have cheese pizza added to the local storage. And if a Redux store, now you see we have three items. All right, that's perfect. So now we have all the items that are being clicked on, or that the user wants to add to the cart, is being added to the Redux state and our local storage. And we want to do our final test. Remember that this is right here is from the product component, but if we click on let's click on penne pasta, which we haven't added to the cart. But if I click the view product for it, remember this add to cart button it belongs to a different component. So let's make sure that this works for here as well. So currently, remember we have three items that we've added, both in the Redux store, and if I click here to the local storage, it shows here only three items. But now if I want to add the penne pasta, click on the add to cart for the single pay for this product component. I'm going to add it. Click here. Now you see that it's also added using the button from this component and adds it to the local storage. And also clicking on the Redux, you see now we have four items here as well. All right, so now we took care of that. All right, so the next step, I guess, is now at this point that we have this available to us in both of these, we would be able to set up a cart page and display all the items that the user has available to them in the cart. And also it allows us to, here we're gonna have a link that's gonna be, it's gonna say cart, and it's gonna have the number of items, the number of items in the cart as well. All right, so we'll take care of that in another lecture. I'll see you then.